This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, July 31st, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Investigators have found that a helicopter involved in a deadly January crash was flying above its height limit. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
President Trump has announced he'll impose 25% tariffs on goods from India. Jennifer King, Washington.
Former Vice President and former Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris says she will not run for governor in California. I'm Ed Donahue.
Brown University has struck a deal with the Trump administration. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
The tsunami advisories are over, but the vigilance is not. I'm Rich Johnson.
Demolition has begun on the final pieces of Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge. I'm Mike Hempen.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The NTSB has begun a multi-day hearing on January's fatal plane crash at Reagan National Airport. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports investigators believe the Black Hawk helicopter that was involved in the crash had faulty equipment.
Investigators have found that a helicopter involved in a deadly January crash with a passenger plane over Washington was flying above its height limit. The helicopter's altitude measuring instrument was also inaccurate. NTSB Chairwoman Jennifer King.
I am concerned. There is a possibility that what the crew saw was very different than what the true altitude was. We did testing in May that shows concerns with the altimeters, the barometric altimeters on the UH-60 Lima. So we are concerned, and it's something we have to continue to investigate.
Hearings on the crash will continue focusing on military helicopter routes, collision avoidance technology, and air traffic controller training at Ronald Reagan National Airport. The crash killed 67 people. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
After a month of negotiations, President Trump is threatening India with a big increase on tariffs. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
President Trump has announced he'll impose 25% tariffs on goods from India. Posting on Truth Social, the president says there will also be an additional penalty import tax starting on Friday.
We're talking to India now. We'll see what happens. It doesn't matter too much whether we have a deal or whether we charge them a certain tariff, but you'll know at the end of this week.
Because India continues to buy Russian oil and military equipment, which enables Moscow's war in Ukraine. Trump says India is our friend, but its tariffs are far too high on U.S. goods.
We're now negotiating with various other countries, and the rest we're just sending out the bill to. We send a letter saying that you'll pay a certain tariff. Obviously, that's most of them because you have as you know, hundreds of countries, a lot of countries out there.
Last year, the U.S. trade deficit with India rose nearly 5.5% to close to $46 billion. Jennifer King, Washington.
Since she lost the 2024 presidential election, questions have swirled about the career path of Kamala Harris. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports one option has been crossed out.
Former Vice President and former Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris says she will not run for governor in California next year. In a statement, Harris says she spent time reflecting on this moment in the nation's history and decided not to get into the governor's race to replace Gavin Newsom. The decision extends a guessing game about her political future that started after losing last year's presidential election to Donald Trump and leaves open the possibility of running for the White House again. Longtime Harris advisor and Democratic strategist Sean Clegg says the former vice president was tempted to run for governor, but decided to explore other options. Among the possibilities she has considered, starting a nonprofit to engage younger voters. Gavin Newsom can't run again for California governor because of term limits. He could possibly enter the 2028 presidential race. I'm Ed Donahue.
The top stories of the day are brought to you by Sleep Number. Smarter sleep is life-changing. Save up to $800 on select Sleep Number smart beds. Limited time, only at Sleep Number. Another university settles with the Trump administration when America in the Morning returns after these messages. America in the Morning continues. Storms likely today along the mid-Atlantic coast. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
As a cold front gradually breaks the heat wave that gripped parts of the Northeast and mid-Atlantic through the start of this week, dropping south and eastward through tomorrow, there will be more than enough moisture ahead of this feature to help produce drenching, repeated downpours, and some areas where it simply rains for hours instead, from mainly southern New England, south and west through much of Virginia and into the Ohio Valley. As these storms become more numerous today, a flash flood risk will build through much of this corridor, including cities such as Providence and Baltimore. However, some of these storms may be able to become severe, with localized gusty winds near 65 miles per hour, especially in areas that have the chance for a bit of sun today, from southern New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania through much of the Carolinas. The risk for some especially intense downpours also will extend westward to eastern Tennessee and across much of West Virginia, and through Friday, a swath of at least 1 to 2 inches of rain is expected from far northeastern Ohio and most of Pennsylvania through north central Virginia and right to the coast from the Delmarva Peninsula into southern Maine, also covering most of New England and the lower Hudson Valley. Outside of the wet weather in the East Coast and the interior South, some steadier rain is expected, at least to start the day, from lower Michigan into northern Indiana. Showery conditions extend into northern Missouri as well, with a risk for thunder from central Indiana and Ohio into Oklahoma, eastern Texas, northern Georgia, and much of Florida. Afternoon showers and storms may be fairly widespread in the western states once again today, with much of California instead looking dry. In Columbus, Ohio, today brings less heat, but an increasing breeze with showers and a thunderstorm, high 80. For Salt Lake City, sun mixes with clouds. It's looking hot and windy with a high fire risk and a high of 97. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Simply search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Yet another university has reached an agreement with the Trump administration to restore its federal funding. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports the deal is similar to the one signed last week by Columbia.
Brown University has struck a deal with the Trump administration to get back its federal funding. The Ivy League school agreed to pay $50 million to workforce development organizations in Rhode Island over 10 years as part of the agreement. Brown will also adopt the government's definition of male and female and must remove any consideration of race from its admissions process. The 3-year-long deal has many similarities with one signed last week by Columbia University. The agreement with Brown restores dozens of grants and contracts that had been suspended during an investigation into Brown's handling of allegations of anti-Semitism, including during pro-Palestinian protests on campus last spring. It also calls for the federal government to reimburse Brown for $50 million in unpaid federal grant costs. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
People along the Pacific coast and the Western Hemisphere are breathing easier. Tsunami warnings, advisories, and watches have been canceled, but Correspondent Rich Johnson reports experts remain vigilant.
In Hawaii, Australian tourist Jack Craig is relaxing.
Everything seems back to normal.
He and partner Sky Kelton wrote out the tsunami warning inside their Honolulu hotel room. Kelton fielding calls from her anxious mother back home.
Yeah, she was a bit worried. She was telling us to get some last-minute groceries and go up the mountain a bit more. But the grocery shop that we go to was normally 10 minutes away, but it was 2 hours by the time we looked at it.
Among the precautions during the warnings, Alaska and Hawaiian Airlines turned back some Hawaii-bound flights. Things are now back to normal, and the airlines are rebooking those whose plans were disrupted. A wave of lies hit social media during the alerts, some spawned by artificial intelligence. X's AI chatbot Grok repeatedly told people that warnings had been canceled when they were very much still active. Oprah Winfrey, who owns an estate on Maui with a private road, pushed back on internet accusations she kept the road closed as people tried to evacuate. A spokesperson for Winfrey said they worked with law enforcement and FEMA to make sure the road was open. And as for what's next, meteorologist Matthew Capucci says there will be plenty of action on the ocean floor.
Anytime we have an earthquake, it's not just one earthquake, it's an earthquake sequence. And so we're expecting more aftershocks in the days ahead, some magnitude 6, maybe magnitude 7 here or there.
Capucci appeared on News 9 Australia, as did Craig and Kelton, the Australian tourists. I'm Richard Johnson.
Market update from yesterday's Fed decision. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after the Fed held interest rates right where they are. Markets were mixed in the end. Fed Chair Jay Powell said there's no way to know if the Fed will cut at its next meeting.
We'll get 2 full rounds of employment and inflation data before the time of the September meeting. We have made no decisions about September. We don't do that in advance. We'll be taking that information into consideration and all the other information we get as we make our decision at the September meeting.
Microsoft and Facebook parent Meta shares popped in after-hours trading last night on strong quarterly results. Meta added more daily active users, and it's pushing hard into artificial intelligence.
The company's spending on AI could be the big headline. Zuckerberg writing about his new focus on personal superintelligence, driving the investment of hundreds of billions of dollars into compute and, quote, the most elite and talent-dense team in the industry. Now, this comes on the heels of the company investing $14 billion into Scale AI.
CNBC's Julia Borston. Ford said it took an $800 million tariff hit in its quarter. Hershey reported strong quarterly results, but the CEO told CNBC, yep, it's raising prices.
We will see some increase in prices going forward.
That's Hershey CEO Michelle Buck. She talked about tariffs on CNBC.
The biggest place we're feeling the tariff impact is cocoa. We cannot grow cocoa in the U.S., and I was pleased to hear Secretary Lutnick specifically call out cocoa. So I'm optimistic about what might be to come relative to cocoa and a potential exemption. As we look at cocoa inflation and rising prices, certainly over the long term, we are committed to covering cocoa inflation with pricing and with productivity, aggressive productivity initiative.
Procter & Gamble raising prices, too, on about a quarter of the items it makes. Things like Charmin, Pampers, and Tide. It said on its earnings call it's taking a $1 billion profit hit because of tariffs. President Trump slapped a 50% tariff on copper imports, which can make many products more expensive, including newly built homes. More jobs than expected were created in June in the ADP private payrolls report.
104,000 versus 64,000 estimate. Small business back in the game here, plus 12,000 had been down the prior 2 months.
CNBC senior economics reporter Steve Leisman. We're going to get the government's big June employment report tomorrow morning. On today's watch list, we get the latest on inflation with the PCE report. Earnings are coming from Amazon and Apple. It's Miracle Treat Day at Dairy Queen. $1 or more from each Blizzard sold at DQ goes to the Children's Miracle Network hospitals. The first NFL preseason game is tonight in Canton, Ohio. Chargers and Lions. It's the Hall of Fame game.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. The FDA's vaccine chief has announced he plans to step down from the role. Correspondent Sagar Meghani reports his tenure in that position was brief.
The Food and Drug Administration's vaccine chief is out after a brief tenure. Vinay Prasad spent fewer than 3 polarizing months as the FDA's top vaccine regulator. He drew criticism from biotech executives, patient groups, and conservative Trump allies. He joined the FDA in May after years as an academic researcher who often criticized the agency's approach to drug approvals, a contrarian approach that seemed to match that of the FDA's overall chief. 2 people familiar with the situation, though, tell the AP Prasad was ousted after several recent controversies. A spokesman says Prasad did not want to be a distraction and stepped down. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Correspondent Charles de Ledesma takes us to Birmingham, England, where fans of heavy metal rocker Ozzy Osbourne paid their final respects.
Thousands of Black Sabbath fans pay their respects to frontman Ozzy Osbourne as his hearse makes its way through the streets of Birmingham, the city in central England where he grew up and where the band was formed in 1968. The hearse, carrying Osbourne, who died last Tuesday at the age of 76, makes its way down the city's major thoroughfare, Broad Street, to the Black Sabbath bench, which was unveiled on the Broad Street Canal Bridge in 2019. Family members watched the cortege, the procession was being paid for by them. Since his death was announced, fans have made pilgrimages to sites around Birmingham. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The demolition of the remaining sections of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore is underway. Correspondent Mike Hempen reports the steps involved include breaking down large sections of what remains of the collapsed bridge.
Demolition has begun on the final pieces of Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge. Crews are using giant saws, backhoes, and other heavy equipment on large sections of what remains of the bridge. Officials say this phase of the demolition should take about 9 months. They say the replacement bridge can be built nearby while this work is ongoing. The new bridge is expected to open in 2028. The Key Bridge collapsed in March of last year after a container ship lost power and veered off course, killing 6 people. The replacement bridge will be taller and better protected than the original Key Bridge, which was especially vulnerable to ship strikes. I'm Mike Hempen.
America in the Morning for Thursday, July 31st, 2025 is produced by Alexander Hinton. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
The margin of separation, the critical number in the investigation of January's fatal mid-air crash near Washington, D.C. I'm Rich Johnson.
President Trump is announcing a new tariff on goods from the world's most populous country, Sagar, Magani, Washington.
A city council member in Virginia was set on fire. I'm Haya Panjwani.
The U.S. wants back millions of dollars in COVID relief from local governments. I'm Mike Hempen.
Baseball's trade carousel is picking up steam. I'm Robert Workman.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Some areas of the Pacific have downgraded their tsunami warnings after yesterday's major earthquake near Russia, but correspondent Marcela Sanchez reports other areas are still at risk.
Warnings are being downgraded in several areas after an 8.8 earthquake struck off the coast of the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia's far east. That's audio from a shaking room in Kamchatka. Audio courtesy Kamchatka branch of Geophysical Survey of Russian Academy of Science. The earthquake is now one of the century's most powerful, triggering tsunami warnings and advisories across the Pacific, including Hawaii, Alaska, the U.S. West Coast, and Japan. I was very scared. The warnings were for all over Japan, so I was frankly scared. That's Misachi Yoshino, a Tokyo resident. She and her husband spent most of the day at home monitoring the news until they felt it was safe enough to go outside for a walk. Meanwhile, Chile upgraded its tsunami warning to the highest level for most of its 4,000-mile Pacific coastline. The quake struck early Wednesday local time in Russia, still Tuesday in the U.S. Several people were hurt, but no serious injuries or major damage has been reported. I'm Marcela Sanchez.
A former lawyer for Donald Trump has been confirmed by the Senate as an appeals court judge. Correspondent Ben Thomas reports.
By a 50-49 vote, senators confirmed Emil Bovee for a lifetime appointment as a federal appeals court judge. A former federal prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, Bovee was on Trump's legal team during his New York hush money trial and defended Trump in his 2 federal criminal cases. Confirmation came despite whistleblower complaints about his recent conduct at the Justice Department and Democratic attempts to stop his nomination. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer calling him
a Trumpian henchman, the extreme of the extreme of the extreme.
But Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley defended Bovee.
Mr. Bovee has a strong legal background and has served his country honorably.
Ben Thomas, Washington.
The federal government is looking to claw back some of its money. Correspondent Mike Hempen explains.
The U.S. wants back millions of dollars in COVID relief from local governments. The Treasury Department wants to recoup COVID-19 pandemic relief funds from local governments that received millions of dollars but never explained how they used the money. The federal government distributed $350 billion to state, local, territorial, and tribal governments as part of the American Rescue Plan. More than 30,000 governments were to receive funding, and most submitted either quarterly or annual progress reports. The Government Accountability Office says as of about a month ago, 235 governments had neither filed a report nor returned their pandemic relief funds. The GAO says without progress reports, the Treasury Department is limited in its ability to determine whether governments are spending the funds on allowable uses. I'm Mike Hempen.
Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports there's been a recall of an energy drink brand after some cans wound up in the wrong product line at the factory.
Energy drinks that mistakenly contain vodka are being recalled in more than half a dozen states. High Noon is recalling 2 production lots of High Noon Beach Variety Packs because some contain energy drink cans with vodka inside. The company says the cans contain vodka seltzer and were mislabeled as sparkling blue raz flavored Celsius Astro Vibe energy drinks. The packs were distributed to retailers in Florida, New York, Ohio, South Carolina, Virginia, and Wisconsin. The company says a shared packaging supplier mistakenly shipped empty Celsius energy drink cans to High Noon. People who purchased the drinks with the impacted lot codes are encouraged to dispose of them. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
NASA and India have jointly launched a satellite into space. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports the spacecraft will help scientists track changes to the land.
Scientists say the $1.3 billion Earth mapping mission, a dual US and India project, will help forecasters and first responders stay one step ahead of floods, landslides and other disasters. Rocketing to orbit from India, the satellite will survey virtually all of Earth's terrain multiple times. Its 2 radars, one from the US and the other from India, will operate day and night, peering through clouds, rain and foliage to collect troves of data in extraordinary detail. NASA's Science Mission Chief Nikki Fox said ahead of liftoff, it's the first of its kind dual radar satellite that will change the way we study our home planet and better predict a natural disaster before it strikes. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The National Guard's Cyber Response Unit was called in to respond to a threat inside the city network of St. Paul, Minnesota. Correspondent Chuck Palm has details in today's Tech Report.
St. Paul, Minnesota was hit with a nasty cyber attack on Friday, so Governor Tim Walz calls out the National Guard. According to a story from bleepingcomputer.com, St. Paul systems were hit hard with Wi-Fi going down, online payments not available, and libraries and rec centers went offline. Mayor Melvin Carter called the attack deliberate and coordinated by some slick hacker crew. Emergency services like 911 stayed online, but the city's network went dark, leaving 311,000 residents in a lurch. St. Paul's IT department and 2 hired cyber firms got swamped, so Walz hit the big red button deploying the Minnesota National Guard Cyber Unit on Tuesday to restore order and protect critical services. Employee data may have been at risk, but there have been no ransom demands as of yet. Some have called the response over the top, and others compare it to swinging a sledgehammer at a mosquito. For more tech news, follow me at chuckpalm.com.
Here's Thursday Sports with America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
A busy day in baseball on and off the field. The Padres shut out the Mets 5-0 to complete the sweep. Yu Darvish and the Dervishes twirled a 3-hitter for San Diego's 5th straight win. Pirates have won 5 in a row after edging the Giants 2-1 in 10 innings. San Francisco wrapping up a winless 6-game homestand. First time that's happened to that franchise since 1896. Royals blanked the Braves 1-0 in 10 innings. The teams combined for just 8 hits. Salvador Perez had the game-winning single. Yankees shaded the Rays 5-4 in 11 innings. A wild one where all but one of the runs were scored in the 8th inning or later. Marlins shut out the Cardinals 2-0. Cal Quantrill and the Raiders scattered 5 hits.
I think we've been trending in the right direction for a while. First 4 innings were really clean. 5th got a little dirty, but it's a good start. Series win.
Guardians rolled over the Rockies 5-0. 6 Cleveland pitchers allowed just 3 hits. Cubs blasted the Brewers. Blue Jays squeaked past the Orioles. Tigers back on track with a win over the Diamondbacks. Spencer Steer's 2-run triple in the 8th boosted the Reds past the Dodgers. Astros smashed the Nationals. Red Sox routed the Twins. White Sox waylaid the Phillies. A's nipped the Mariners. And the Rangers down the Angels. The MLB trade deadline is 6 p.m. Eastern time today. But things are already getting busy. Early this morning, the Mariners appeared to have won the Eugenio Suarez sweepstakes, getting the slugging third baseman from the Diamondbacks for 3 prospects pending a medical exam. Suarez has 36 homers. That would give Seattle 2 of the top 5 in that category this season, along with the major league leader, Cal Raleigh. Yesterday, the Phillies picked up closer Yohan Duran from the Twins, while their NL East rivals, the Mets, added 2 bullpen arms, Ryan Helsley from the Cardinals and righty Tyler Rogers from the Giants, whose twin brother lefty Taylor Rogers was also traded traded, going from the Reds to the Pirates for third baseman Brian Hayes. The Cubs added starter Michael Soroka from the Nationals, and the Yankees picked up outfielder Austin Slater from the White Sox. And I hope you're ready for some football, because the NFL preseason begins tonight in Canton, Ohio, the Hall of Fame game between the Chargers and the Lions. That's Thursday Sports.
Fans lined the streets of Birmingham, England, to say goodbye to the man known as the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports the show of support left his family in tears.
His hometown, Birmingham, England, gave an emotional farewell to Ozzy Osbourne. The hearse carrying Osbourne went down Broad Street in Birmingham to the Black Sabbath bench. Wiping away tears, Osbourne's wife Sharon left flowers at a memorial. Birmingham is where Ozzy Osbourne grew up. It's called the home of metal. Thousands of Black Sabbath fans paid their respects to the band's frontman.
It's the only opportunity as a metalhead that you can walk through the city centre with flowers.
Nick Tilley was at Osbourne's final concert just a few weeks ago.
First albums that I owned, Blizzard of Oz. Changed my life.
Vicky Gray says Osbourne's legacy started there.
We just sat there having some lunch, and there's all this Aussie music playing with Black Sabbath and then the solo stuff, and you hear it and you could just hear that how much it's influenced everything that I love and grew up listening to.
Ozzy Osbourne's hearse moved on to a private funeral. I'm Ed Donahue.
E-News is saying goodbye to broadcasting on cable TV. Correspondent Kevin Carr has details.
There's another victim in this season of television cancellations and corporate restructuring. E-News is being put to rest after 34 years on the air. Anchors and staff were informed on Friday that the program is ending. It was originally launched in 1991 amid the boom of basic cable.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Tailored to an audience of pop culture fans, E! News passed on politics and world events, focusing on celebrities, gossip, and more. The program had a presence on YouTube as early as 2005, but heavily promoted it in 2018 and 2019.
Let's get this E-News party started. We're the pop of culture.
The cancellation decision was made as part of NBC Universal's brand development, shifting the entertainment news outlet's focus online and on social media. This isn't the first time the program has been canceled, however. The network axed the show in 2020 when the COVID pandemic caused a suspension of in-studio productions. However, it returned 2 years later with host Justin Sylvester, who spoke about that on the Today Show at the time.
E-News is coming back, and I am one of the hosts. Yes! This is a huge deal because E-News has been and will always be the #1 news source.
E! News will still exist online as a digital brand. Similar shows under the NBC Universal umbrella, like Access Hollywood and Access Daily, will continue to broadcast on television. E! News will have its final broadcast on September 25th. I'm Kevin Carr.
San Francisco's hosting a 3-day festival in honor of the Grateful Dead's 60th anniversary. And according to Correspondent Jennifer King, it's a great time to break out the tie-dye.
How do you mark the 60th anniversary of the Grateful Dead? How about 3 days of concerts in San Francisco?
So Dead & Company, which has the remaining members of the Grateful Dead in it, are playing a 60th anniversary show.
Thousands of Deadheads like David Aberdeen are looking forward to the weekend as the city celebrates the origins of the Hall of Fame psychedelic jam group.
Grateful Dead, anything can happen, or Dead & Company, or any of the offshoot bands. It's part of it. They live in the moment. It's the magic of the moment.
In 1965, band members lived in a cheap Victorian in the city's Haight-Ashbury neighborhood and became a big part of the Summer of Love in 1967.
The Grateful Dead are an integral part of who we are as a city.
Sunshine Powers owns a shop nearby.
The idea that we're all included, we can all get along, we can find a way to dance to music that we all groove to.
Dead & Company, featuring original band members Bob Weir and Mickey Hart, will play 3 days starting Friday for a crowd of 60,000 at Golden Gate Park's Polo Field. Graham Lesh and Friends play 3 nights starting Thursday at Pier 48. Lesh is the son of bassist Phil Lesh, who died last year. On Friday, which would have been Jerry Garcia's 83rd birthday, San Francisco is renaming a street for the guitarist, who passed away in 1995. I'm Jennifer King.
On this date, stones are laid for the first government building, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia. The year was 1792. And that's our show for today. America in the Morning for Thursday, July 31st, 2025 is produced by Alexander Hinton. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.